finish up with this. So, you sent me this, and I thought it was funny because I'm kind of interested in what you have to say about this. The pending civil war. Do you think
Oh,
that? I mean, I laugh at this, but I mean, I probably shouldn't be laughing because kind of serious topic. But like, do you actually think? I mean, because the United States is not a greatest place. I don't care, where you are on the spectrum of politically, but I think everyone would agree that the United States is not in the greatest place. Do you actually think that there's a high likelihood that this ends poorly in terms of like an actual legitimate civil
um,
war?
I mean that's kind of a complicated topic, and it's a fun one to talk about, right? And kind of fantasize about because it is a fantasy, right? For guys who are like really into this, I got a lot of friends who are civilians and they're really into night vision and they're really into training with night vision and all. In holy shit, that's a huge expense. You're talking IR laser and night vision, you're talking $10,000 plus, and they train with them, and you go, what the fuck are you training for?
I feel like I've
You're
been
not
called
training
out.
for you're not training for a burglar. You're not in the military. I mean, what are you doing? Because it's fun and it's cool. And to justify that cost, we're boogaloo boys. We're preparing for whatever. And okay, I'm on board. That's a cool fantasy. I get it. Everybody's got the burglar breaking into their house fantasy, right?
Listen,
So
I have my night vision sitting on my nightstand, ready to go.
I,
Listen,
I get it.
if it
I get
happens, it's gonna happen.
you got to justify the cost. I get it.
That will be a
But
fantastic headline.
so my dad is kind of grumpy and kind of cantankerous in his old age. He's 70 now, and he's very politically. He's like me. Let's leave it at that. And he keeps talking about that stuff because he gets all riled up. We'll be at dinner or whatever. And I asked him. I said, realistically, Dad, who are you going to shoot? I mean, who are you going to shoot?
Mm-hmm.
If you're really upset at the government or whatever and the feds, and okay, they're not getting in a line, and they're not all going to put on blue helmets, and they're not going to wait for you. They're not going to go door to door. They're not coming. They're not coming. They're not coming for your guns. They don't care about your guns. They don't need your guns because they control you with social media. They control what you think and what you see. They control your spending, your wealth with inflation. They're able to take your wealth from you and use it for whatever they want through inflation.
Yep.
They don't need to knock down your door and take your money. They already have your money.
Yep.
So they control what you see. They control your movement. They control your travel. They control your finances. They control the fruits of your labor. So why would they send troops? For what? To what end? And he was with me. He's like, I don't know. Yeah, why? So everybody's still thinking, oh, conflict and civil war, and oh, it's going to be these armies moving into an area. And why would they? Mm-hmm. So, and let's say that is going on, and everybody's thinking about night vision and IR lasers, and I got my AR-15, and hey, I'm pro 2A as they get, and yes, I think the Second Amendment is to protect against tyranny. It really is. But tyranny comes with a drone with thermal vision. Mm-hmm. And if you're not thinking about that game, you're setting yourself up for failure. And if these guys, oh yeah, we're going to be running around with our night vision at night and raising hell, and okay, you're going to be real easy to spot compared to the other civilians that aren't wearing night vision. It's going to be a clue. We might want to keep an eye on these guys and follow them back to wherever they go lay their head. Mm-hmm. I mean, just from a practical standpoint, I think this fantasy breaks down pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I listen to podcasts. I got friends who go on and they talk about this stuff. And it is really interesting thing to talk about. But I think realistically, if you want to, fight for your rights, your liberty, maybe looking at parallel economies, looking at stuff with Bitcoin. Stuff like that, hit them where it hurts. Yeah. I think that is a much more reasonable, much more effective long-term approach. Yeah. So, I mean, that's great that you're spending money on this oh shit stuff. And I call myself like a really lightweight prepper. I get it. Up here, I know it's all bullshit, but in here, I still got some MREs downstairs, yeah. and a significant ammo supply.
Yeah.
But having said all that, realistically, I know, maybe invest some money into parallel economies.
Yep.
Yep.
Maybe
get rid of your Disney Plus,
yeah.
Subscription.
I mean, until the conflict part, do I think this is going to break down into a gigantic civil war like you saw in the 1860s? Highly unlikely. Will there be conflicts? If they are, I think they'll be extremely localized, like what you saw at the Bundy Ranch situation, where that was a whole situation of itself. But if you do see conflict, I think it'll be extremely localized, like whatever. Police and CPS are coming to go take some guy's daughter away because he won't conform to her wanting to transition or something.
Yeah, you need to move to a different state.
Yeah, well, I would say that too. But hey, they're coming to take them, and a bunch of people show up and go, fuck off, right? Kind of basically what happened at the Bundy Ranch thing. I can see it being very localized like that, but as like a widespread, nationwide war.
I would argue one, if a federal government is still fighting a war the same way they did in 1865, that's probably not a federal government you have to worry about.
Yeah.
I would like to think they've gotten better at things.
A little bit. But then again, we lost a war against cavemen who fucked us.
Yeah, who essentially refused to quit. So there is that.
Yeah.
They also didn't use social media or have a currency that we could replace with a digital currency.
That's true, because they traded
which,
those.
By the way, is, in my opinion, the last nail in the coffin. If they switch to a digital currency, a federal digital currency, it's a wrap.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. But so kind of on that note, what's it going to look like? One, nobody knows. But when we talk about that kind of civil strife, everybody in this country always goes back to the Civil War. Why? Because that's what we learned in school, and that's our reference point. We have really cool movies about it, right?
Yeah.
But in the rest of the world, when you talk about Civil War, it looks more like what we have going on in Haiti right now, right? Where you have gang violence and these warlords trying to fight over territory and turf and influence and political power. That's what real Civil War looks like. And you talk to people who have gone through it, and it allegedly, from what I've heard, it happens really quickly. Everything's fine. Yeah. And then the next day, nobody's in charge and the power goes out and everybody's just kind of looking at each other like, what's going on?
Yeah. Same thing that happened in Venezuela a few years ago.
Right. And all these infrastructures kind of start falling apart one by one. I spent 2 weeks in South Africa years ago, and it was kind of a similar situation down there. It wasn't really a civil war, but where the kind of powers that be aren't as established as they are in this country. Yeah. The things that we depend on, like electricity and clean water, isn't quite as guaranteed. Yeah. You calling 911 and the cops showing up and helping you because your house got burglarized means something totally different there. They're a lot more independent because those systems aren't in place like they are here. And when that's what he told me. He goes, the people we were staying with, he goes, that's when it starts people start looking around, is when the stuff you depend on, like the pothole in the road getting fixed, that doesn't happen. After like 3 years of the pothole being there, you're like, hey, what's going on? Yeah. Why isn't anybody fixing the pothole? Why does the power keep going out? Why are we running out of groceries? Mm-hmm. Why is everything fucked up? Yeah. Why would we fix the traffic light that broke? That's when things start to kind of fall apart. Yeah. So I don't think it's going to look like what people think it's going to look like. I don't think it's going to look like and this is all obviously fantasy realm. Of course. I don't think it's going to look like what people prepare for in their heads. Yeah. I sincerely believe in the election, regardless of who wins, there's going to be political violence.
Oh yeah.
Just like in 2020, I was a cop in 2020. I spent a lot of time on rooftops watching protesters tear apart my city. And I sincerely believe I'll be doing that again. because people just don't know how to fucking communicate anymore. They don't know how to get along, and they lost all their interpersonal communication skills in exchange for comments.
Yeah, and,
it's easy to be divisive online.
And our culture has just glorified degeneracy along with that.
Yeah.
There's just the moral decline of a. I mean, you saw this with every great empire that has ever fallen. Rome being the most obvious one and the biggest one, right? I mean, look at the end of Rome. The entire society just glorified degeneracy. Now, going on from that, so this is a bit of a political question, and I guess I'll answer it first. Basically, the question is, how do we solve this? Because right now, the United States is on a steep decline, and as it is now, it's not going to end well. However it ends, it's not going to end well. So, ultimately, what's the route that prevents us from crashing and burning, if you will, as the next empire that does that? And to me personally, I go back and I read the anti-federalist papers, and they were right on every single count. Everything that they said that would happen if the United States back then, of course, when this is post-Revolutionary War, when they were deciding whether we have a federal government or don't have a federal government, all the states to stay separate. You know, the anti-federalists were the ones saying, "Hey, no, we shouldn't have a federal government because of X, Y, and Z." Everything that they said that would happen if we adopted a federal government has happened, and to an extreme extent.
Well, maybe the best thing that could happen is it does fall apart.
Yeah,
I mean, mathematically, it's got to with the debt, right?
Yeah,
and mathematically, we're kind of on. There's really no way to turn the ship around. Maybe the best thing is for everything to fall apart and things be really bad and really difficult for a while. Maybe not with violence, but rather with just economically, people trying to get by, feed their families, raise their kids. And maybe on the other side of that, hard times create strong men, and we fix it and do it better. And then 250 years later, that fucks up. I mean,
yep.
Just being brutally honest, it's, I mean, England's been around for a really long time. Yeah. And they've ebbed and flowed.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I think that's ultimately